I gave her my ideas, my heart, my soul, and she stole it all, slapping her name on it. But one project turned my life upside down, and I made her regret it. Intrigue, betrayal, tears, rage. A real war had begun. My name's Emma Davis. I'm 29 and I live in Chicago, a city where skyscrapers pierce the sky, and dreams either soar to the stars or crash onto the cold pavement like fragile glass. I grew up in Evanston, a suburb, in a modest house with a worn-out lawn and a creaky swing that was my safe haven. I'd sit there, staring at the clouds, dreaming of being a storyteller who touched people's hearts. My parents were regular folks. Mom, an accountant, always crunching numbers with her calculator, counting every penny. Dad, a mechanic, his hands always smelling of oil, fixing everything except my shattered hopes. They taught me stability was everything, and dreams were a dangerous luxury. But I was different. In school, I scribbled stories in notebooks with kittens on the cover, designed posters for plays, threw parties where even the shyest kids danced to my playlists. I loved creating moments that made people feel alive, like their hearts were sparking to life. After college, where I studied marketing, I rolled into Chicago with one bag, an old laptop, and a heart blazing with hope. I dreamed of creating campaigns that could change the world, or at least make it brighter. But reality hit like a January Chicago wind, cutting right through you. I landed a job as a junior marketer at Brightwave Marketing, and instead of shining, I ended up in the shadow of my boss, Kaitlyn Rogers. My life felt like an endless marathon, running till I was gasping, sweating, my heart ready to burst. But the finish line always ended up in another woman's hands. Kaitlyn Rogers, my boss, was the star of Brightwave Marketing. Tall, with perfect curls, wearing Gucci suits that cost more than my yearly salary, she was the picture of success. Her smile could sell sand in a desert. Her voice could get a client to sign a contract blind. I looked at her with awe, like she was a lighthouse guiding my way. I wanted to be like her, confident, radiant, unstoppable. But the day I saw my project under her name at the big presentation, my world cracked like a mirror, shattering into 1,000 pieces. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an accident. It was her choice. Cold, calculated, like a knife in the back. My sleepless nights, my ideas, my heart poured into every line. It all became her trophy. I sat in the corner of the conference room, gripping my pen so hard my knuckles turned white, a lump choking my throat. My heart pounded like a drum, screaming, "That's mine." I wanted to jump up, tear the room apart, throw the truth in the faces of everyone clapping for her, worshiping her like a goddess. But I just smiled. Smiled like I was taught. Be nice, don't make waves, swallow your hurt. My cheeks burned with shame, and inside I was screaming at the injustice. I felt my heart breaking from the pain, the humiliation, the betrayal. I was a shadow no one noticed, and in that moment, I hated myself for it. Every morning, I woke up hoping today would be different. I'd get up at 6:30, pull on my faded H&M suit, worn out from too many washes, and stare at my reflection in the subway window. "You can do this. You've got this," I'd whisper to myself. But by the time I stepped into Brightwave's office on the 6th floor of that skyscraper, my confidence melted like morning fog over Lake Michigan. I'd sit at my desk, surrounded by sticky notes, empty coffee cups, and dreams that felt further away every day. I created campaigns that hooked clients, from startups to big brands. My ideas were alive, real, like a beating heart. They could change lives, touch souls. But in Kaitlyn's shadow, they became hers, and I was just an echo no one heard. That Monday, I was working on a campaign for a coffee shop chain, Bean and Bliss. I came up with the concept. Your day starts with warmth. I could see it so clearly. A cozy video of people drinking coffee, laughing, hugging. A guy in a park feeding ducks with his son. A woman in an office sipping coffee and smiling at her coworkers. Teens in a cafe chatting over hot cocoa. I poured my soul into it. I spent hours studying trends, analyzing audiences, writing slogans. My apartment floor was covered with storyboards where I sketched out scenes to a warm acoustic tune. This was my pride, my hope. I felt this campaign could be more than just an ad. It could touch hearts, make people believe in kindness. I worked nights, skipped hangouts with friends, ignored shows, forgot sleep. My eyes were red from staring at screens. My fingers trembled from exhaustion, but I didn't stop. I wanted to be seen. I wanted them to see my heart. At the morning briefing, I showed Kaitlyn the draft. Her eyebrows went up, but her eyes stayed cold as ice. "Not bad, Emma. Polish it," she said, already glued to her phone. I polished it. Sacrificed sleep, meetups, calls with my mom. I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted to be seen. But I didn't know I was setting myself up for another wound. At the presentation, I sat in the corner of the conference room, clutching my laptop like a lifeline. I was ready to answer questions, defend my idea. But when Kaitlyn stepped up to the projector, her heels clicking like a death sentence, she turned on the slides. My concept, my words. But at the top of every slide, Kaitlyn Rogers, marketing director. My name, not a trace. Clients clapped, called her a genius, shook her hand. I felt my throat tighten, my fingers digging into the armrests. My cheeks burned, my ears rang, my heart tore apart. This was my work, my soul. And she stood there, smiling like it was her heart beating in every frame. I wanted to scream, charge at her, rip my truth back. But I smiled. Smiled because that's how I was raised. Be nice, stay quiet, endure. But inside, I was screaming. It was betrayal, and it burned like acid. After the presentation, she came up to me, her smile sharp as a blade. "Good work, Emma. You're great at supporting the team." Supporting. The word hit like a whip. I wasn't supporting. I was creating. But in her world, I was a shadow doing the dirty work while she basked in the applause. I went back to my desk, tears stinging my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Not here. Not in front of her. But inside, I was dying. It wasn't just unfair. It was like someone ripped out my heart and put it on display with her name on it. It took me a while to see how deep this game went. Evenings, I'd sit in my tiny Lincoln Park apartment, staring at the neon pizza sign outside my window. The silence of the place pressed down on me, and I'd replay every moment when my ideas became her victories. The campaign for the jewelry brand Silverglow? Mine. I crafted stories of people giving rings for big moments, a proposal under the stars, a baby's birth, an anniversary with trembling hands. I cried writing the script because I believed in those stories. The slogan for the fitness app, "Move easy, mine. Move at your own pace." I scribbled it on a napkin in a cafe, feeling the words hit my heart. Even the viral video for an animal shelter that got 1 million views? My idea. Dogs in bow ties running in a park, captioned, "Find a friend for life." I sobbed editing it because every second was mine. But in every press release, every report, every thank you, it was only her name, Kaitlyn Rogers. I started seeing her game. She didn't steal outright. It was subtle, almost brilliant. She'd ask to see a draft, share some thoughts, toss out a few ideas. I, naive, thought it was teamwork. I was proud when she praised my sketches, even if her praise was as cold as a Chicago breeze. But every document I sent came back with her signature. And me? A pat on the shoulder and a "Good job, Emma." It was a game where I was a pawn, and she was the queen playing my moves. One day, I couldn't take it. After a presentation where she claimed my plan for an energy drink, Pulse, I knocked on her office door. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it'd burst. My palms were sweaty, my voice shook, but I forced myself to speak. "Kaitlyn, why wasn't my name mentioned?" That was my idea. She looked at me, her eyes narrowing like a predator spotting prey. "Emma, You're part of the team. The team's success is my success. Don't be petty. Petty. The word stabbed like a knife. I left, feeling the ground slip away. My cheeks burned, tears choked me. I was nobody. A shadow. And I hated myself for it. That night, I sat on my couch with a glass of cheap Pinot Noir. Tears streamed down my face. I didn't wipe them. Why did I let her do this? Why did I stay quiet? Why was I afraid to be seen? The answer hit like lightning. I was scared that without this job, without her approval, I'd be nothing. My parents were proud when I got this job. They bragged, "Emma's working in Chicago, at a big company." But they never asked if I was happy. To them, I was set. But what if I was already nothing? To Kaitlyn, to the company, to myself. That thought burned like hot coal. I poured another glass and opened my laptop. For the first time, I started looking at job postings. Not to leave, but to remind myself. I could. I had to. I wasn't a shadow. I started seeing through Kaitlyn, and it scared me. She was a master manipulator, her words like a spider web. Beautiful, but deadly. At meetings, she twisted everything to her advantage. If a client asked a tough question, she'd look at me. "Emma, you worked on this. Explain." I'd answer, heart racing, and she'd nod like she'd guided me. Then she'd take my words, rephrase them, and present them as hers. It was so seamless no one noticed. Or they didn't want to. I felt like a puppet, her pulling the strings while the room clapped for the queen. One day, I overheard her talking to Sarah in the break room. I was pouring coffee, hiding behind the machine when Kaitlyn said, "Emma's talented, but she lacks ambition. She's good for drafts but presentations. That's my thing." Sarah laughed like it was a joke. I froze, the coffee pot shaking in my hands. Good for drafts. I was a tool, not a person, not a professional, a machine for ideas she stole. I went back to my desk, anger boiling in my chest, but something new followed. Resolve. I didn't want to be her draft. I wanted to be the author of my own story. I started collecting proof, not for revenge, but for protection. Every email where I sent her drafts, every document with my ideas, every file labeled Emma Davis, draft. I named the folder on my laptop Light. It was my reminder. I'm not a shadow. I worked harder, creating campaigns too good to ignore. I poured my pain, my dreams, my belief in myself into them. But every time my name was erased, a piece of me died. I couldn't live like this. I had to fight. December 12th, a Friday, was the day my heart broke and was reborn. We were prepping a campaign for a fashion brand, Luxe Vibe. This was my shot. I worked for months, a video series where regular people became stars through clothes. Be you, but brighter. My slogan, born as I watched a sunset over Lake Michigan. I created a mood board with sunset colors, pink, orange, gold. Wrote a script. A suburban girl puts on a dress and feels like a queen. A guy in sneakers dances in a new blazer. I found influencers, not models, but people with stories. A teacher, a barista, an artist. Kaitlyn approved, but with her usual polish it. I polished it, sacrificing everything. Weekends, friends, calls with my mom. I lived and breathed this project. At the client meeting, I sat in the front row, clutching my laptop like a shield. I rehearsed my points, ready to defend my idea. But when Kaitlyn started the presentation, my blood ran cold. She didn't just present my concept. She butchered it. Added yachts, diamonds, models with perfect faces. My idea of authenticity was crushed under glossy pretension. It wasn't my campaign anymore. It was her version. Empty, cold, alien. Clients clapped, but my heart tore apart. My slides, my words, but her name. Kaitlyn Rogers. After the meeting, I approached her, tears burning my eyes, voice shaking. "Kaitlyn, that was my idea. Why did you change it? Why isn't my name there?" She looked at me with a smile that froze my blood. "Emma, I made it better. Clients want luxury, not your naive stories. You're talented, but you lack vision. Vision. She stole my soul and called it her vision. I stood there, feeling the world collapse. I wanted to scream, punch something, but I nodded and left. My legs wobbled, my ears rang. This was the end. I couldn't take it anymore. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my laptop, opened Google Docs, and wrote a letter to myself. I poured out everything. The pain of being invisible, the anger at Kaitlyn, the fear I'd stay in her shadow forever. Tears dripped onto the keyboard, but I wrote, "Emma, you deserve more. You're not a shadow. You're light." I reread those words, and something inside sparked back to life. I couldn't play this game anymore. But how? How do I prove I'm worth something? I closed my laptop and looked out the window. Chicago's lights twinkled like stars, and I knew I'd find a way. The next morning, I walked into the office with fire in my chest. I wasn't quitting. That'd be too easy for Kaitlyn. I wanted her to feel the loss. I started documenting everything. Every project, every idea, every draft, screenshots, emails, meeting notes. I built a digital fortress where every detail screamed, "This is mine." The light folder grew, like my anger. It was my weapon, my shield, my way to remind myself I existed. I worked on a project for a startup, Green Glow, making eco-friendly cosmetics. The idea, beauty without harm. A campaign with real women sharing how they chose themselves. I shot a video on my phone. My friend Lisa, freckled, no makeup, talking about loving herself without filters. I cried editing it because it was honest. It was mine. Kaitlyn nodded. "Send the draft." I sent it, but I did something else. I sent a copy to the CEO, Marcus Evans, with a note. My concept for discussion. My heart pounded as I hit send. It was a risk. Kaitlyn could destroy me, but I was done being invisible. She found out the next day. Called me into her office, her face stone cold, her voice like ice. "Emma, you crossed a line. That's insubordination." I looked into her eyes, fear wrestling with anger. I just wanted my work to be seen. She was silent, her lips tight. "Be careful. People like you are easily replaceable." The threat hung in the air, but I didn't flinch. I left, blood pounding in my temples. I wasn't her shadow anymore. I was me, and I was ready to fight. A week later, Marcus called me in. I braced for the worst. A reprimand, firing, humiliation. My palms were sweaty as I rode the elevator, but he smiled. "Emma, I saw your Green Glow project. It's fresh. It's what we need. Why didn't I know you could do this?" I could have spilled everything about Kaitlyn, how she stole my ideas, made me feel worthless. But I smiled. I've always been capable. Just waiting for a chance. He offered me the chance to present the project to clients, without Kaitlyn. At the presentation, I stood by the projector, knees shaking, but my voice was steady. I talked about beauty without harm, about women who inspire. I showed Lisa's video and the room went quiet. Then, applause. Loud, real, for me. For the first time, my name was on the slides. Emma Davis. Tears burned my eyes, but I held it together. This was my light. But Kaitlyn didn't back down. She spread rumors that I stole her ideas. Lisa whispered over coffee. "Kaitlyn's saying you stabbed her in the back. She's got half the department on her side. Be ready." I was ready. I had my light folder, but I didn't expect an ally. Lisa said, "Emma, I know what she's doing. I've seen her rewrite your ideas. I'm with you." Her words were like a lifeline. I wasn't alone. For the first time, I felt I could win. Kaitlyn didn't stop at rumors. She got nastier. My projects got lost in the system. Files didn't reach clients. My notes were ignored, then showed up in her presentations with tweaks. She tried to isolate me, make me look unreliable. I overheard her whispering to Sarah, "Emma's too ambitious. That's trouble. Sarah nodded, but her eyes flicked to me. She knew the truth, but stayed quiet. I got paranoid, checked every email, glanced over my shoulder, leaving the office. Worked late at home, encrypting files in my light folder. It was a quiet war, but it was draining. I trusted no one but Lisa. One day, Marcus asked for a report on my projects for the year. I want to see how you're doing. I panicked. A trap? But I remembered my light folder. Spent a night compiling a report. Every project, draft, idea, screenshots, emails, notes. It was my manifesto. If they fired me, I'd leave with my head high. The pressure kept building. I started doubting myself. What if I was wrong? What if I was petty, like Kaitlyn said? What if I wasn't that good? Those thoughts choked me. I stopped sleeping, ate on the run, looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. Bags under my eyes, smile gone. Lisa noticed. Emma, you're fighting ghosts. She was right. I was fighting Kaitlyn, the office, myself. One evening, I sat in my apartment staring at the light folder. I opened it, rereading projects. Bean and Bliss, Silver Glow, Green Glow. Every word was mine. But what if it wasn't enough? Tears fell. I didn't wipe them. I opened the letter to myself. Emma, you deserve more. You're light. I reread it until the words felt true. I couldn't give up. Then I got an anonymous note. A sheet on my desk. You think you won? This is just the start. I knew it was from Kaitlyn or her allies. My heart clenched, but I didn't show fear. I tucked the note into my light folder. It was my story, my fight, my truth. I wouldn't break. Kaitlyn went further. She didn't just steal my ideas. She started undermining my reputation. At a meeting, I noticed colleagues avoiding my eyes. Lisa told me Kaitlyn had met with Marcus behind closed doors, hinting I was unreliable. She faked an email, making it look like I sent a client wrong data, nearly costing us a contract. The client called me, demanding answers. Emma, did you send us an outdated budget? I was stunned. I hadn't sent anything. But the system showed an email from my account. I opened it. A fake, but a good one. My hands shook as I checked the logs. Someone had accessed my account. I knew who. I sat in my apartment, feeling the walls close in. This wasn't just a war. It was a hunt. Kaitlyn wanted to destroy me, erase not just my ideas, but my name. I called Lisa, my voice breaking. She set me up. It's her. Lisa was quiet, then said, Emma, you have proof. Use it. You're stronger than you think. Her words were a spark in the dark. I opened my light folder and got ready. This wasn't just defense. It was a fight for my life. The showdown came at the company's annual meeting. Kaitlyn presented her campaign, my Bean and Bliss campaign. I sat, gripping my phone with the light folder. As she spoke, anger boiled inside me. She showed my slides, my footage, my words. The room clapped. I raised my hand. Everyone looked at me. Kaitlyn froze, her smile faltering. Kaitlyn, that's my concept. I created it a year ago. I have drafts, emails, everything. The room went silent. She tried to laugh it off, but I sent Marcus the files. Check your email, I said, looking at him. He opened his laptop, his face darkening. The proof was undeniable. Emails, files, notes. Marcus pulled Kaitlyn from the next project and put me in charge. The room was quiet, but I felt their eyes. Lisa smiled from the corner. It was a victory, but it cost me. I left, tears streaming down my face. Not from pain, but relief. I did it. I was light. Kaitlyn vanished from the office for a week. Rumors said she took a vacation. But I knew she was planning her comeback. Colleagues avoided my eyes, whispered behind my back. Some called me a traitor, others a hero. I was neither. I was Emma, tired of being invisible. Marcus called me in, Emma, that was bold. But Kaitlyn's got influence, connections. You ready? I nodded, but inside I was terrified. I wasn't ready, but I couldn't back down. I kept working, but every move was scrutinized. Mistakes turned into gossip, successes into envy. The office felt like it was choking me, but I held on. For me, for my light folder. Kaitlyn came back, and her revenge was brutal. She got a LuxVibe client to file a complaint, claiming I breached confidentiality by sharing their data with competitors. It was a lie, but the evidence looked solid. Fake documents, staged emails. I found out when Marcus called me into his office. Emma, this is serious. If it's true, you're done. I stood there, the floor dropping out from under me. My light folder was strong, but it wasn't enough. Kaitlyn was playing dirty, and I didn't know how to prove my innocence. I spent a night digging through system logs and found a trace. Someone used my password to access files. I begged IT to check. They traced the IP to Kaitlyn's office computer. It was my chance. I gathered all my proof and asked Lisa to be a witness. She agreed. At the next meeting, I presented my evidence. Kaitlyn paled, her hands shaking. Marcus looked at her like she was a traitor. She tried to talk her way out, but the truth was stronger. They pulled her from all projects. I won, but the victory left scars. I could have stayed at Brightwave, but I knew it wasn't my place. Kaitlyn was fired a month later. Her reputation was trashed. I left, but not before making a bold move. I reached out to Bean and Bliss and LuxVibe clients offering freelance services, sent them my real portfolio. They both said yes. I started Davis Spark. My office was a cafe in the West Loop where I sat with my laptop and dreams. The first year was rough. I scraped by, but every contract reminded me. I made a choice. My campaigns went viral. Beauty Without Harm won an award. My name popped up in blogs. Kaitlyn tried starting her own thing, but flopped without other people's ideas. I didn't gloat. I moved forward. 2 years later, I'm sitting in my West Loop office, a loft with brick walls and floor-to-ceiling windows. On my desk, sticky notes, a coffee cup, a photo from my first presentation. I'm not afraid to be seen. I don't stay quiet when my ideas are stolen. I'm not a shadow. My agency's growing. I've got 3 employees, and we make campaigns that inspire. Sometimes I wonder, what if I hadn't taken the risk? I would have lost myself. But I found myself. My light shines, and no one's going to dim it. What do you think? Was I too harsh? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.